Welcome to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President Local 237 Teamsters. Today we have a very special guest, Stephen A. Smith of ESPN, well-known broadcast journalist, well-known person in the sports industry, and I could say watching Stephen A. Smith and listening to him on television and some of the other shows I've seen him on, Chris Matthews' show, he is never without an opinion. And today we're going to hear his views on politics and whatever else Stephen's going to share with us. But I'm very glad to have you here with us, Stephen.
I promise you I'll be here. I'm looking forward to it, man. Thank you for having me. How have you been?
I'm doing great.
All right.
Well, the first thing we want to talk about, we want to talk about your views on what's going on with the debt crisis. What is going on in Congress in Washington? What do you think?
Well, I'm disgusted by it. I just think it's more of the same, bickering, too much bickering going on, a lot of partisanship. The reality is that it doesn't appear that the American people are of paramount interest. It's everybody's agenda, individual and otherwise. Everybody's trying to get reelected. Everybody's trying to parlay themselves and position themselves for reelection, for power, for an extensive level of power, etc. And you know what? It's par for the course to some degree, and the American people, for the most part, can live with it if we're not struggling. But when you consider the economic recession that hit this country from 2007 to 2009, when you consider the aftershocks that are still reverberating throughout this nation and affecting every American citizen to some degree, and very little of it being positive, you have an obligation as an elected official to look beyond partisanship, to look beyond politics, and to just do what's in the best interest of the American people. And I find it incredibly difficult to believe that people this intelligent, this accomplished, who supposedly care so much about our nation, can't find common ground on practically everything. It really leaves me wondering what on earth is going on. It leaves me incredibly concerned about the future of this nation, because if you're thinking about yourselves, then you don't follow what I've often called the Spock theory from the movie Star Trek,
Yes,
the first
okay.
one, where he was dying and he said the lives of the many outweigh the lives of the few. Clearly, you're not thinking along those lines. And if that's not what you are about, you should not be in the House of Representatives. You should not be in the Senate, either House of Representatives, obviously, and you shouldn't be in the White House. I don't believe that's the case with our president. I believe his heart and his soul is in the right place. I might question some of the things that he does, some of his methodologies, some of his decisions. But I don't question his heart and soul. I wish I could say that about other people in politics. That's not the case right now, and I think we all should be concerned because of it.
I remember a president that we had. His name was Gerald Ford. He was one of the few presidents, maybe the only one, that wasn't elected vice president who became president, because Spiro Agnew, he took over for Spiro Agnew back in the 70s, and then he became president after Nixon resigned.
That's right.
Gerald Ford pardoned President Nixon. In doing that, he knew that he may not be reelected, but what he said was it was good for the nation.
It was in the best interest of the nation.
And he sacrificed becoming the president, being elected, to do what was good for the nation.
People, I've often talked about this. People look at me and they hear some of my views and they think I'm a conservative. I am not a conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social moderate / liberal. When it comes to dollars and cents, I'm incredibly conservative because I want to know where our money's going and how it's being spent.
And that's the right way to be.
When it comes to social issues and things of that nature, I think we need to be a bit open-minded. I think we need to address things on a case-by-case basis and the times that we're living in. And I look at it from the standpoint, I consider myself a registered independent. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I call myself from the Common Sense Party. That's where I'm at. That's what I'm about. And I think that when you look at the country in the way that we are right now, I don't take positions. I don't speak against politicians or things of that nature. I think that's incredibly irresponsible for any of us to do. And considering the fact that I work for ESPN, I have an obligation to take them into consideration, as well as myself, when I'm pontificating about whatever views I may have. But what I will say to you is that I'm still a tax-paying, God-fearing, American citizen who desperately, desperately loves this country and wants it to do well. And when I look at the state of affairs, I'm about business. I understand it, and from the standpoint that everything comes down to money. You have a debt ceiling. I'm appalled that we've been debating the debt ceiling when we should be debating the debt.
Yes.
That's what we should be debating. You know, you could raise the debt ceiling by $2 trillion, but when you have a debt that's $14 trillion and counting, when you have several policies that have been implemented or what have you that projects that ultimately projects that the debt will increase exponentially, it's a problem. And dare I say, I'm a black man. I'm incredibly sensitive to my community. I love everybody. I love white, black, Asian, or whatever the case may be. But I'm a black man.
You're a people man.
And so there's a level of sensitivity that, you know, I'm predisposed to being a bit more sensitive to. And when I look at the national debt and I think about how we continue to increase our debt and our deficit, well, at some point in time, you have to pay that. The bills are going to come calling,
yes,
and the call's going to come to it's time to pay up. When that day comes, history has shown that whenever this country has a problem, black folks are usually the first to suffer, and they suffer the most.
Yes.
So for folks to not pay attention to that national deficit and the collateral damage it's destined to inflict, I think is flat out asinine. It makes no sense whatsoever. So I pay attention to it, and what it forces me to do is, rather than watch one channel that's leftist or one channel that's right wing or whatever the case may be, I watch them all because I want to hear what both sides have to say, then come to the truth and develop my truth based on what the facts tell me and make my decision then. Unfortunately, our society, by and large, rarely does that. What we do is we operate fully off of emotion. And what I find most egregious is that the politicians themselves have learned that about us, and they feed into that. And that's what they give us. They give us emotional outbursts. They give us sound bites. They give us everything we want, but the unfiltered truth. And that is what we're going to have to demand and insist upon receiving if we're going to move forward as a nation.
I'm Gregory Floyd. You've been listening to Reaching Out, and our very special guest was Stephen A. Smith, and we were glad to have him. We're going to invite him back as many times as he want to come. If he has something to say, just pick up the phone. You can always come back.
No problem. Good luck to all your union members. Stay strong, everybody. Y'all take it easy.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.